Well, let's take a look at history and decide together. The Persian Empire, especially at the, let's say, the last 100 years, 150 years, there was a caste system. The king's class, and there's basically the lords and the wealthy families, and then the businessmen.
Like a feudal system.
Yeah, it's a feudal system, and there's basically a third layer, and then there's the peasant and the farmers and the poor and so forth. A stratified society. In such societies basically have oppression. There's the majority is oppressed, and the upper 5%, few percent, basically they live the life. Taxation was super heavy, especially because of the wars between the Byzantines and the Persians. Who pays for the war? It's the middle class and the lower class. The instability within the families and the dynasties. It's a one family rule. Nobody has the opportunity to become the emperor. Nobody has the opportunity to even basically switch between social mobility is almost zero. So this is the Persian Empire. Heavy taxation, injustice, class injustice, political injustice, social injustice, economic injustice, continuous wars with the empires, internecine conflict between the members of the same dynasty for authority and power. So this is the Persian Empire. Now, we're not saying basically it was a jungle, but basically it wasn't well suited for the regular average Persian man and woman. The colonialists wanted to break the link between the different ethnicities and Islam, because Islam unified everybody. Like, you need to understand this area. You have Mesopotamians, you have Kurds, you have Persians, you have Arabs, you have Copts, you have all different types of Armenians, a million types of ethnicities living together in peace for hundreds of years. And to divide and conquer, which is the only strategy to basically defeat a nation, you have to break the pieces. You need to break the connection between the pieces, and then you need to create a connection. Because see, the human bond is natural. Somebody, like an identity, is something that everybody is always looking for. Who am I?
Yeah.
So Islam used to define that, and that's why there's cohesion, social cohesion, and harmony. The colonials, when they started coming in the 1700s and the 1800s and 1900s, especially in the later days, they sent specific, archaeological missionary work to try to, you can say, investigate that history,
like the Egyptologists.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine you're an Egyptian and you're a Muslim, but you're so proud to be a pharaonic.
Yeah,
they call them a pharaoni. It's crazy.
That's just ridiculous.
So similarly, basically, what happened during the British influence on Persia?
Yeah.
They did a loss of work. It's called political socialization, to socialize this population and to link it ideologically or from an identity perspective back to the Persian Empire, which is any Muslim wouldn't be very proud of anyway.
Interesting. Now, there's a tweet that made the rounds that's kind of linked to this. People say the Islamic Golden Age wasn't real. It was all just Persians. Is that true?
It's a no, because at the end of the day, what enabled the Golden Age is not one specific ethnicity. It's all the mosaic of society working together, all the forces of civilization working together. Sure, maybe the Arabs were more focused on the politics and the business, and the Persians maybe were focused more on the science and the religious studies, and each different. And the Turks were focused more on military affairs and fighting, and they're fighters. Even today, basically, we have Khabib, number one fighter in the world. That's where they come from. These areas were pretty mountainous. But the society, what creates a golden age in general, which is civilization and human progress, is the security and the stability and the peace that enables creativity and cooperation, collaboration between the different actors or different segments of society and individuals, elements of society, to create what becomes a golden age. Now, that being said, so that's the no part. The yes part is that, the Persian had a big role in the scientific and the religious Islamic advancements of the Islamic sciences.
Yeah.
So if we look, for example, at the hadith sciences, the greatest 6 books of hadith, all of them were by scholars who are, from the Persian areas.
That's insane. And I think most Muslims would know Bukhari and Muslim.
Yeah.
Those top 2 muhaddithin are Persians. I did not expect all 6.
Well, Bukhari is from Bukhara, which is in current-day Uzbekistan. Muslim is from Naysabur. Abu Dawood He's from Sajistan. Abu Dawood is basically from an area right now in Afghanistan right now. You have Imam al-Tirmidhi from Tirmidh, also basically within these areas. Al-Nasa'i from Nasa, same thing. Imam Ibn Majah al-Qazwini from Qazwin, from North Iran today. So all the 6 of them are actually within these Persian areas, at least Persian-dominated areas. Ethnically, most of them might be Persian. Some of them maybe, have Turkic descent also. Imam al-Ghazali, from a fiqh perspective, his teacher, Imam Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni, is also from Juwayn, from these areas. So from a mathematics perspective, we can say one of the greatest minds of mathematics of all time. The word algorithm came based upon his own name, Al-Khawarizmi, from Khawarizm, which is in Iran and so forth. You have the very famous poet who was also a great mathematician, Umar al-Khayyam, is also basically one of the greatest minds of mathematics of that time.
What's really interesting to me especially is the fact that many of them were the top scientists in the Islamic sciences. And we're going to get to this question later in the episode when we talk about were the Persians, subdued or in any way oppressed by Islam. Well, you see here, like, the religious sciences were embraced and led by the Persians themselves, which I think is pretty cool.
Not only that, even the Arabic language itself. Some of the greatest names are like Imam Sibawayh. Yeah. He was also Persian.
That's pretty crazy.
Like the greatest name in Arabic linguistics is that. Also in terms of, for example, al-ilm al-balagha, eloquence.
Yeah.
Imam al-Jurjani, Jurjan, and also Imam al-Zamakhshari. They're also Persian, right? So, subhanAllah, there's lots of great scientists in the natural field, in medicine, Ibn Sina, and so the names are so many to divulge.
I see.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, because we do see a trend now where different ethnic groups have certain nationalistic tendencies, not just Iranians or Persians, but also you see this with black nationalists and people, even Arab nationalists, both the emphasis on the pre-Islamic history and this sense that, like, we had a different culture and different personhood that Islam came and imposed itself upon, right? So I think this is like a great demonstration that no, actually these different races and ethnicities embraced and led Islam. So I wanted to speak about another fault line in identity, which is the whole Sunni Shia thing. Was Persia always Shia? Was it made Shia? What's the reality?
No, actually, most of the time, Persia was fully Sunni, almost fully Sunni. There's some pockets of Ahl al-Bayt, especially in the Iraq areas, but also within what current day Iran. But the majority were Sunni until the Safavids came in.
And who were they?
Maybe there's also a little bit of basically the Buwayhiyin. The Buwayhiyin basically was this dynasty that created a state in northern Iran and spread within Persia. They were Shia, but they did not convert the masses. They didn't force people to convert.
Okay.
So they kept the population as it is, and they respected the Sunnis, and they influenced the Abbasi Khilafah. They really kind of took over. Basically, during their time, the Abbasi rule became just symbolic.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Partly maybe why they didn't do that is at that time, basically, it was still even the Ithna Ashari madhab was still kind of forming, you can say. So they were almost like generic Shia, at least some sources say. But let's say there's Ithna Ashariya, for example, like imamates. They didn't try to push that on the people. So even while they were there, Iran, current day Iran or Persia, continued to be super majority Sunni. And maybe the reason they didn't basically kind of oust the Abbasids because in the Shia thinking, they're waiting for al-Mahdi. So the political rule, they kept it for the Sunnis symbolically, and they really ruled underneath them, but had the full say, really. See, in Islam, people sometimes call the Islamic, at least these dynasties in Islamic history, as empires. So they say the Abbasi Empire or the Ottoman Empire. Astaghfirullah, that's wrong. Okay? And if it slips, it's a slip of the tongue, is no problem. But if people really mean it, to demean Islam is improper, because these Islamic caliphates were not empires.
Well, what's an empire?
But an empire is basically, the most important thing with the empire is a one family rule, let's say, that focuses on colonializing the periphery, continuously expand for the sake of domination and for the sake of resources that gets transferred from the periphery back to the center.
two-tier sort of civilization.
Definitely. Oh, without a doubt. So stratified societies. There's the colonialists and there's the subjects and
random tangent. I think was it the Umayyads that didn't want to include when they expanded. They didn't want to include new populations as Muslims, and they kept making them pay the jizya.
Well, that's a wrong analogy. And the reason it's a wrong analogy because jizya is not like taxes. Taxation is when people basically pay a big portion of their income. Okay, jizya is just a symbolic collectibles by the government for the sake of providing services, and by default the poor doesn't pay it. So the difference between jizya or even Islamic zakah or tax in general, and the word tax in human history, is that tax gets basically paid by everybody except the nobles. Jizya is the exact opposite. The jizya is taken from and the equivalent of jizya for the Muslim, which is zakah, is collected from the rich and given back to the poor. So definitely this is totally a wrong analogy. And the point of basically not wanting the people of those new areas to become Muslim, this is not because we don't want them to convert, because we want them to be given the choice, the free will, to enter Islam willingly.
Okay.
Because in Islam there's no such thing as basically forcing any population or any single individual to become Muslim, because by forcing a person to become a Muslim, immediately he becomes a munafiq, a hypocrite, which is by definition Islam is a person who's not going to gain salvation. You see what I'm saying? Like the whole concept of forcing people, it doesn't exist in Islamic philosophical mind.
So how did Persia become Muslim? Was it not forced?
It's a great question. When Islam basically entered Persia and entered any other area within its history, the entrance to these places was not for resource grab or domination or subjugation. You see what I'm saying? It was actually to spread the justice of the Islamic system so other ethnicities, other people, other races, other nations could prosper and live in peace and harmony. See, people need to understand that Islam is not a religion. When we see it as a religion, you see it as basically being forced. Actually, the number one rule in Islam is that the religion of Islam, and there is such a thing because it's a part of the whole, should never be forced upon anybody. People can choose their religion, and if they want to stay Christian, they can stay Christian, whatever it is, whatever the point is. But the Islamic system, God has sent it to humanity for the sake of social cohesion, economic prosperity, and political justice. Okay, I'm going to repeat one more time. Social cohesion, economic prosperity, and political justice. These are the aims of the deen of Islam, the system of Islam. So when you see tyrannical empires smashing their own people and smashing the people around them, Islam basically will always want to give this gift of justice to other people. So when Muslims entered Persia, what did they do? It's not like what the United States have done to what they're doing right now to Iran. Trump himself said, basically, I'm going to go grab the oil. The whole oil is mine. It's ours. We don't say that's un-Islamic.
That's empire behavior.
That's empire.
Yeah.
That's actual empire. But when the Muslims entered into the same place, we kept the resources for themselves. Actually, the zakah, from an Islamic fiqh perspective, should be collected and spent on the same people. It shouldn't be taken to the center.
Interesting.
To the capital. So what did the Muslims do that made people actually willingly and en masse become Muslim? They built schools. They built hospitals. They fed the poor. They fed the needy. They educated the uneducated. They built roads. They built libraries. They gave everybody an equal say in choosing their leaders. It was Iraq that always basically people used to come and refuse and rebel against the governor of Iraq. Every single time they rebelled, not rebelled like by military means or forceful means.
You're talking about the Persian governor of Iraq.
What usually was not Persian at that time. After the Muslims came in, it was the Sahaba.
Yes.
So when it was so that many Sahaba, the Persian people of Iraq and Iran used to basically complain. When they complain about them, Umar al-Khattab multiple times just switched the whole governor. It's like, I don't want to put a person that basically doesn't satisfy the people's dreams and intent.
Yeah.
So that's what Islam brought. I mean, since when? Tell me one time in Persian history, they say 2,500 years, where the people of Persia went and complained about the emperor or a governor, and that governor was replaced, or that emperor was replaced. Never happened. Islam came and did that, something which is unimaginable. When people felt that justice and love and peace and prosperity, yeah, and social mobility and education and justice in the courts and in politics, they're like, yo, I want to be from these people. It's like people want to be American. Many people basically from Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe and Latin America and the Middle East, they want to be American. They go to America, they become American, and they try to be as American as it gets.
And I guess partly that's, America did have
I want to stress this point, that you need to understand. Today, there's something called the American dream. Back then, the reason people converted by the millions en masse is because they saw and they lived the Islamic dream. But we don't speak about that because there's no Islamic dream. There's only Islamic nightmares.
Yeah, today, unfortunately.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Most people think the Islamic dream means like, having the right clothes, being able to go to the masjid every day, or, having a nice, say Islamic environment around you. But it sounds like it's more than that.
It's definitely more than that. See, sadly today with our secular mindset, we only see Islam as just a bunch of prayers and fasting and stuff like that. But the Sahaba radiallahu anhum understood exactly what the Islamic dream is. That's why they basically lived for it and died for it. So talking about the Persians, for example, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum sent one of them, a Sahabi by the name of Rabi ibn Amr, and he went and met, if I'm not mistaken, Rustum, or one of the kings of Persia. And that dude basically asked him, look, what do you guys want? What are you guys coming to try to, mess with us? Who are you guys in the first place, right? Like, do you guys want some? He told him, you guys want some food or clothing, or we can give you some money. Just get out of here. He says, no, we're not here we're not people for money or food. God has sent Islam to us, so we free the subjugated human being, the oppressed human being, from the subjugation of man to the proper relationship and submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, the most merciful. And from jawr al-adyan, from the injustice of man-made systems and man-made empires, to the prosperity and the justice of Islam.
SubhanAllah. Like what a big idea. Exactly. And unfortunately, most Muslims, when they say that Shahada, La ilaha illallah, they don't recognize like what the Sahaba recognized.
Exactly.
About the expansiveness of this idea.
Yeah.
Kingdom of God. So let's talk about Iran today. There's this guy right now, Reza Pahlavi. People are claiming is the right ruler of Iran against the Islamic regime. What do you think is best for Iran?
The Pahlavi dynasty, we know it because it ruled already Iran. It's not like as if we don't know what they're going to be doing. First of all, they are British-connected dynasty. So they were very modernized. They remind me of Muhammad Ali Pasha. So this family is very tied to the Western way of life. And you need to understand what came before the Pahlavis were the Qajars. And they took over after a small dynasty after the Safavids. So the Safavids, they ended in 1736, and the Qajars came in 1789, and they continued until the Pahlavi came over and took over in 1925 by the help of the British. But the British they infiltrated the Qajars in the first place. Actually, the British even had relationship with the Safavid Empire itself.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
So the first interaction was in 1616, where they helped the Safavids to take over Hormuz Island. And speaking about the Strait of Hormuz today. So there's an island within the Strait of Hormuz called the Hormuz Island. It was occupied by the Portuguese in 1507. The British helped the Safavids to free it from the Portuguese by the help of the British in 1622. Okay, so that's how far the relationship of some of these Iranian Persian dynasties was with Europe and the British in specific. And you know about basically the British-Persian company that became BP after, right? Influenced everything about Persia through the Qajars, and after that, basically during the Pahlavis. So during the Pahlavi dynasty, what did you have? You had nakedness in the streets. You had secularism. You have liberal theology.
You had the Savak.
It was a repressive rule, really. You need to understand, colonialists understood that basically occupying other nations is very expensive. So they moved into neo-colonialism, which is the indirect rule of these lands.
Yeah.
So the British basically said we don't need to be there ourselves necessarily if we have the right people, and the right people were the ones who basically kept the population subjugated to the European powers. So that's why anybody who calls for Pahlavi is an idiot. Sorry to say it this way, because this is a form of colonialization.
And it's so clear with Raza, like, who's been living in the US for so long and says, you know what, I love America. I'm just used to life in America. I'm not sure I'd even want to go back to Iran.
Yeah.
But okay,
the vast majority of Iranians today are Muslim.
Yeah.
They love Islam. And not everybody is religious, but they're Muslim. The super vast majority, they're like, look, I'm Muslim. I might not be super practicing, but I'm Muslim. I don't want to lose my Islam and my identity. But there's this 5-10% who are super secular liberalists. I mean, you have to agree with your population. If you really agree with your own philosophy of, let's say, democracy, then you have the 90%. They're choosing to live by Islam. Why don't you respect that?
So Persia has had its ups and downs, right? We talked about the oppressive nature of pre-Islamic Persia and the level of discontent and oppression that there was. And then it became Muslim. And then you can really say it was a golden age. What do you envision as the future role that Persians can play in Islamic revival?
Iran today is almost 100 million people. And it is close to the heart of the Muslim world. Okay, it is in the center. We believe that Sunnis and Shia should be brothers and sisters, period. Our future is one, our nation is one, our deen is one, our book is one, our prophet is one. We all love Ahlul Bayt, period. And we need these extreme Sunnis to stop basically doing takfir on the Shia. 100%. 100%. We are equal Muslim brothers and sisters, period. Sure, we might basically disagree in certain things and we think they're wrong. Sure. Doesn't matter. Everybody sins. Everybody has sins. Nobody doesn't have a sin. So what they could do is what every other ethnic, let's say, mosaic of the Muslim Ummah is to call for unity and to call for brotherhood and to call for unification and to call for the erasure of the intellectual borderlines, nationalism and so forth, and to really, really focus on being one unified social harmonious fabric of 2 billion people. This is what they can and should do, period.